Hey, it's Soul with another video, and I'd love for you to say hello to the wonderful sponsors up above, and you know what, we're just gonna get right to the thumbnail. Mythic Plus in patch 8.3 is literally going to kill raiding as we know it. Again. So this isn't really a new conversation at all, but it's one that I think that needs to be had because in the comments that we've been seeing most recently, like in places like Wowhead, it's been less than productive. So I'm going to get you up to speed on what's going on by reading directly from the blue post that was put up the other day. In Battle for Azeroth Season 4, the maximum stats on rewards from Mythic Keystone dungeons will be increasing, with item level continuing to improve up through Mythic 15. Completing a 15 in a dungeon in Season 4 will award item level 475 gear in the weekly chest. This is equal to Mythic raid quality, and the maximum end of run reward will be item level 465. So with this change, we seek to better calibrate rewards to the difficulty of high-end Mythic Keystone dungeons, as well as to ensure that in the absence of the random chance for Warforged/Titanforged gear in Season 4, players still have an opportunity to earn rewards from the Mythic Keystone dungeon system that are equivalent to high-end raiding and PvP loot. So if you haven't heard already, Titanforging and Warfrong is not going to happen in Season 4. Actually, I just said that. So this concerns Mythic Plus players who were dependent on it to receive the top-end rewards from their Mythic Weekly chest. And apparently this is going to be the answer. So let's compare what's coming to how things are right now, where players need to complete a Mythic 10 in order to get a piece of Mythic quality loot after Titanforging or Warforging. Whenever you complete any level 10 dungeon, you get a piece of item level 430 loot at the end of the run, which is the equivalent to heroic raid gear today. In previous seasons, there's been a growing concern that because Mythic Plus dungeons always drop loot at the end of a run, players can farm these hardcore and gear up their characters extremely quickly. This critique, it still holds water, because to this day, Mythic Plus is the only kind of high-end content that doesn't have a lockout, unlike, say, raids, world bosses, warfronts, PvP rewards, and weekly events. On the flip side, though, there's no denying that you have to put in this, you still have to put in a lot of work in order to farm these said dungeons. And I want to make it very, very hecka clear that I'm not here to talk about how well we should be rewarded based on the difficulty of the content that's done, even though it's a very closely related subject. That said though, the changes that are coming to Season 4 are a little concerning for a number of reasons. One is that unlike Season 3, players are going to have to complete a Mythic 15 in order to get top-end loot at the end of the week. So we don't know for sure how difficult keys are going to be during the early weeks of Season 4, because we have to consider other things like the legendary cloak, corrupted gear, trinkets that come from the raid, as well as the new Mythic Plus affix. But it's going to be a safe assumption to say that farming a bunch of 15s in the first week of Season 4 is going to be more difficult than farming a bunch of 10s in the first few weeks of Season 3. Another concern is that the items that you get from a 15 are going to be 5 item level higher than heroic raid loot in Season 4, whereas currently in Season 3, the item level is even. Once again, it's not about the difficulty to reward ratio, even though it's being said in that blue statement itself. It's simply the fact that Mythic Plus is a possible source of continuous farming. You can just keep getting this gear that is of higher level than a heroic raid. Now I can almost feel the pushback now. Oh gosh, Soul, there's raid trinkets to consider and Azerite traits and secondary stats and all that stuff that you simply can't get outside of the raid, except for the Mythic weekly dungeon event reward, that thing. And you're right, there are things that raids offer that Mythic Plus simply does not. Now, speaking personally, when it's time to do things with my guild on our special nights, we don't split off and do multiple Mythic Plus runs, even though that might be more efficient. We all bunch up together and throw our bodies at content. That's kind of what we do as a group. The problem that I identify inside my own group is that among some of the people on my team are people who do run keys every week because they like doing them, or because they want to exercise their preparedness outside of raid. Unfortunately, though, that leaves them feeling less rewarded when running with our group for our runs, because what drops is more than likely going to be below their item level, it won't be an upgrade, and so on and so forth. Now, with Titanforging gone, that's especially going to be the case in the Season 4, under the very important premise that these same people can clear 15s consistently. At the very highest levels of content, though, we have to compare the Mythic Weekly Chest to Mythic Raiding. Players have strongly argued that one random piece of gear from the entire dungeon pool per week, it's pretty insufficient compared to Mythic Raiders being able to use things like bonus rolls, and they can trade gear as long as those trading requirements are met. Meanwhile, critics like myself have said that the weekly chest is a double-edged sword. It's really easy to quickly obtain your first couple of pieces of gear because pretty much everything is going to be an upgrade, but sooner or later, you're going to run into stagnation because you're much less likely to get that exact upgrade that you want over time. Thankfully, this is going to be addressed in World of Warcraft Shadowlands, the upcoming expansion, with this whole weird, fangled, updated weekly chest. Based on what we've learned, or based on what little we've learned, what you get from it is going to be, it's going to depend on how you did throughout the previous week. We might see items from Mythic Plus, PvP, or raids, or the upcoming Endless Dungeon Torghast, with the type of gear and the quality based on your performance that you did that week. But there's still one thing left to talk about. It's one of my ideas, so you can consider this as like game design fan fiction, but it's an idea that I have to help resolve at least some of the competition between the high-end content, between raids and PvP and dungeons. This idea isn't really well thought out at all. I just wanted to bring it up as a talking point, but I would love to hear your thoughts on this very simple idea. A set bonus based on how many pieces of gear that you're wearing. So if you're wearing 6 of any piece of gear that comes from Mythic Plus dungeons, cool. That's going to give you a set bonus that will give you a substantial stat increase in dungeons. Or if you're wearing 6 pieces of something from raids, then you're going to get an identical increase while you're in a raid. And the same would go with PvP. And that's pretty much it. The idea here is to curb player behavior, because right now there are kind of certain imbalances when it comes to obtaining gear. As of right now, it's to address how quickly you can gear up with just running Mythic Plus dungeons, but it's also to address an argument that's really typical among Mythic Raiders, that the toughest content should bring you the best gear. So by creating these sort of soft set bonuses, it compels these players to gravitate mostly towards the content that they enjoy running the most. More importantly, it lets players relax from feeling forced into content that they otherwise wouldn't really care to do. But I'm just going to leave it at that, and I'll ask for your thoughts on these changes that Blizzard is going to implement. How is this going to alter your playstyle, if at all? So I'd love you to leave a comment and let me know what you think. As always, like the video and subscribe for more of this and all things Warcraft. I'll see you next time for whatever it is that I do, but until then, stay safe, stay happy, and stay breezy.